Making no other comparisons, and I mean zero, between Duval's character and Rubio, we can all agree President Trump insists on hearing bad news immediately and often responding accordingly. With more on Munich, Navalny, and Rubio's diplomacy, we turn to Elliott Abrams. He's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, most recently a special representative to Iran and Venezuela in the first Trump term. He also served as Deputy National Security Advisor to President George W. Bush. Elliott, always good to see you. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Good to be here, Major.
So evaluate Munich, the Navalny angle of it, and how Europeans are regarding their future in the next year with the Trump administration.
They're worried. What most concerns them is the greatest war in Europe since World War II in Ukraine after the invasion by Russia. And Secretary Rubio's speech, they liked a lot more than last year's Vance speech. But you know, the word Russia was not in Secretary Rubio's speech.
Yeah.
He didn't say Russia one time. So they didn't hear, an awful lot of pragmatic, practical reassurance. They heard some really lovely language about, our common history and values and all, but they didn't hear anything concrete about an American commitment to help. And this happens, as you've just finished saying, on a weekend when we're reminded that Putin kills his opponents.
Right. And Elliott, I can remember a time, now I know it was the Cold War, but there would be references by American leaders to Solzhenitsyn or to refuseniks or to others in Russia, and we would say we hold them up as either victims of this regime or representatives of something we want to combat. This seemed to me to be a perfect opportunity for someone in the American government to say, this Navalny thing is real. We are angry about it, and we're going to hold it up as representative of something we oppose, not just in Ukraine, but internationally.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's fairly shocking that not one U.S. official seems to have commented on it, not the president, not the secretary, not, even a spokesman for the State Department. And this is a pretty dramatic event. They're using really rare poisons to kill somebody who was completely peaceful and was just an opponent of Putin and his system. So that, when they think about it a little bit more, I think the Europeans are not going to be reassured by what is really silence about this. Now, of course, there's going to be a negotiation coming on Ukraine, but they're worried about that too, because they're worried that the United States or the Trump administration is just going to give away too much. That is, we just want it to end. And it seems that we don't care as much about how it ends.
And there's a sense, based on what I read in European newspapers and coverage of Munich in the last couple of months, that Europeans have decided, principally over Greenland, that these things are not going to be put back together in the way they once were, that Greenland was such an affront, such a challenge to the underlying existence of and imperative of NATO, that even after the Trump administration, it's going to be hard to think of this alliance and this relationship as it was once thought of. How do you evaluate that?
Oh, I think that's right, because the idea that the United States would seem to threaten to use force against a NATO ally, in this case Denmark, which owns Greenland, was unthinkable. It would just never occur to you. Well, it happened. So now it's thinkable. They can't just forget about it. We didn't hear those kinds of words, those kinds of threats from Secretary Rubio, but of course that's got to raise in the minds of Europeans a question of, well, there's Trump, there's Vance, there's Rubio, there were many others at the conference. Who really speaks for the United States? And obviously, the answer is the president, and they're going to be wondering about what happens over the coming 3 years, almost getting down to 2.5 until the next presidential election. But they're also wondering about what happens after our election in November. If the president loses his majority in the House, getting legislation through Congress is going to be even tougher. And a lot of presidents, I think, when that happens, turn more to foreign policy, where they have more leeway. So I would say the Europeans, They're feeling better today than they were before Secretary Rubio's speech. But Greenland doesn't disappear. It happened. The thought is in their minds.
Elliott Abrams, always appreciate your time and your expertise, sir. Thank you so very much.
My pleasure.